Hi, everybody. This is Gigi from Wellness on Wheels. And today I have the honor of having my dear friend, Michael Patinelli, attorney at law. Michael is a concierge attorney. He is a trust, estate planning, and probate attorney. He has over 20 years of experience in this field, went to Loyola Law School, and has been our team Wellness on Wheels concierge trust attorney, and has been amazing in helping me personally and professionally with several of our clients over the last couple of years. And today we're going to talk about the effect of the pandemic on his practice and some of the things that we're both dealing with when we face some of the cases that we're both consulting with. So welcome, Michael. It's an honor to have you with me today. Tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your practice.
Well, hey, Gigi, it's always a pleasure to speak with you and see you again. This is a little strange doing it through Zoom as opposed to in person as we usually do. But it's a pleasure to see you and to see all of you out there that are fans of Gigi's. Yeah, I'm an estate planning attorney. It's all I do, which is the planning, administration, and probate of estates. Again, it's all my partner John and I do. And yeah, COVID is keeping us very, very busy. As you can imagine, people everywhere are trying to get their affairs in order, rightly so, thankfully. It's making it a little more difficult, though, because we're not seeing people in person. So my practice has changed dramatically, whereas I used to meet people. Of course, I used to meet people in the comfort of their own homes often. As Gigi knows, one of the few attorneys I think that I'm aware of that I would make house calls to people. I'd be happy to sit with you at your kitchen table to discuss your family's planning needs. That's not happening given COVID, as we all social distance. I'm spending less and less time in front of people. And my practice now has primarily been done through Zoom conferences like this, or just teleconferences for those that are fine talking on the phone. We're FaceTiming. However we can get it done. In some respects, it's taken away a little bit of the ability to be personal in these things because it's not right in front, face to face. But it's making it easier for people too. So my practice has expanded. I now have clients all over Southern California and even Northern California. I live here in Southern California, but now that my practice is based through the internet, I can talk to somebody or Zoom with somebody from anywhere in the state of California and help them with their estate planning, the administration of estates after people pass, or hopefully not, but if probates are available, I can help them with probate.
So our lives have really dramatically changed since the shutdown and not being able to access our patients or our clients, Michael. But obviously in certain situations now we're dealing with crisis management. And a couple of the cases that I've had to deal with recently have had to, people panicked about what their affairs were about. Their family members who have to step in when there's a crisis of somebody's health. And a couple of situations that I've dealt with recently was a friend whose family member was actively dying, and she wasn't aware of if he had a will, if he had a trust, who the power of attorney was. She was asking for my support in getting hospice, in getting caregiving support, and it was clearly a panicky type of situation. I don't know how things resolved because he passed away very quickly. And I try to explain to her that if you don't have this in place before he is out of his abilities to sign paperwork, try to call Michael. And they were in such panic, they couldn't even wrap their head around that. So that was one situation. The other was where it was an elderly couple and the gentleman had an aneurysm and died. The family members who were involved had to step in very quickly. No one knew where any of the documents were. None of the financial support, insurance, the two powers of attorney. One was power of attorney for health. One was power of attorney of finance. There were two people who could not agree on the benefits for the services for their beloved one. And the tension and the madness that occurred was unbelievable. There were so many people coming and going, trying to figure out where all the paperwork was, who was to do what, where anything was. And it was, really horrifying for me to watch, even though I was trying to advise them the proper things were to focus on their loved one's needs immediately. We'll figure out the paperwork later. But there was at least 4 or 5 people in and out of the house trying to go through paperwork and boxes. And the takeaway of that was that the person who assigned the powers of attorney also didn't tell them where anything was, where the documents were, banking, insurance, all these things were a mystery. All the different members of the family were trying to go through boxes and closets and trying to unravel where things were, had no idea what to look for or where to look for it. So those were the 2 major crises scenarios that I faced recently. And it was sort of like after the fact. So what about some of the things that you've dealt with? I know you have had to have had a couple of scenarios come up with people just asking some questions or dealing with some issues as well, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly in the scenario you just mentioned that you've been a part of, I see regularly. I mean, that's something that can happen all the time. People do this paperwork and then they throw it in a closet and they forget where it is and they never notify anybody. And so the thing I would tell people is once you set this stuff up, you need to let those people that you've put in charge, your trustees of your trust, the executor of your wills, your powers of attorney, and your health agents, you need to at least let them know where you keep these documents. They don't need to see them in advance. And I understand why people don't want to share the documents while they're living with people, because these are revocable documents. You can change them as long as you have your wits about you. And so the people you put in charge don't need to know the details of your planning or who gets what and when, but they should know that, hey, you've named them to be in charge of things and make decisions for you, and where they can find the documents. And if you don't want to tell them where you actually keep the documents in your home, I always advise them to give them one of my cards, because that way my partner and I will always have a copy of everything. So if they can't find the plan, or in this case, you had people digging through someone's home during a COVID pandemic when they probably shouldn't have been in that person's house. They could have just called me and I could have emailed them all the documents because we have copies of them. So for I would advise people to make sure their power holders know where they keep their documents or know where they can get a copy from the attorney who produced them. We also give all of our clients a digital copy. We give everybody a thumb drive, basically, so that when they get it home, they can upload it onto a computer. And as long as somebody can find their computer, they can always find everything on there. So, but yeah, I mean, the COVID thing has been one of the things I've seen in my practice really dangerous. Is a lot of times people procrastinate. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes to talk about death and taxes and do this. But if you procrastinate and you have to wait to the last minute to do things, whereas I was always happy to, if I had to, go to a nursing home or go to a hospital room to help somebody get their will drafted or do some work. Right now, I can't do that. So I've had a few instances where people have called and said, my parents are in the hospital, they need to sign a will. And I'm saying, I'm sorry, even if I could do that, the hospital is not going to let me in to meet with your parents. They can't have visitors, basically. So, I mean, the key point here is during this pandemic right now, I would just try to make sure you're not procrastinating. Call a reputable attorney that knows what they're doing and get a consult. In my case, my consultations are always free of charge, so don't be afraid to call Gigi and try to find me and set up a meeting. But get this stuff done well in advance, because as Gigi will tell you, during a point of crisis, it just complicates things immensely. And
so Michael, what are the things that you're asking people to actually do? What are the components here in California? Unlike any other state, we have our own state requirements of what a trust looks like. What are the things that you have to have in place if you are not, you don't want to go into probate? And maybe you can explain what those things are, the most important things that we can do immediately, and things that can maybe wait. I don't really know. You tell us what you recommend.
My pleasure. I mean, basically the rule of thumb is for anybody that has any real estate in the United States, or if they have minor children or adult children that are not very responsible, so kids that would need management after you were gone. The rule of thumb is if you have any of those situations, you need to get a revocable living trust. It's a document that you can place your real estate in the trust, And when you pass away, your real estate will transfer to the people you want to have it, when you want them to have it, and they will avoid having to go through the probate court, basically. And the reason you don't want to go through probate is because it's very time consuming and costs a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars. So, and it's easily avoided by setting up a living trust. So any of you who have real estate or minor children or children that need management or people that need management, do a living trust. If you are renting and you don't own any real estate and all you have are liquid assets, you don't need to have a living trust, but you do still need to have what we call a will package. You need to have a will. You need to have a durable power of attorney for financial matters. You need to have an advanced healthcare directive so that somebody can make your decisions with your doctor if you can't. We like to provide something called a HIPAA release. It's so that people can get your medical records and aren't having a problem under the HIPAA laws. If you're a married couple, you need something called a property agreement. So you can make it very clear what's community property and what might be the separate property of a husband or wife. But it's an estate plan. Rule of thumb, if you got real estate, get a revocable living trust. But speak to an estate planning attorney. And my advice is to find someone that specializes in this area as opposed to a jack of all trades that does a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I think like any practice of law, find somebody that really knows what they're doing and talk to them about it.
So a revocable trust also includes an advanced health directive as well as the power of attorney for finance, correct?
So
That's under the whole umbrella of that?
An estate plan does, right. So people need to do their estate planning, and they need to have an estate plan which includes multiple documents: a trust, a will, a power of attorney, a health directive, a HIPAA release, a property agreement if they're married, personal property memorandums about who gets your baseball card collection and your jewelry and your artwork and your car, your personal property. So it's a group of documents that would be called an estate plan, and that's generally all people need. All people need to do this if they're above 18. And again, the reason is because otherwise your family could end up going through probate court after you pass away, or while you're still living. There are situations where if you lose your capacity and you're incapacitated, you can no longer make your own financial decisions. Well, if they don't have the paperwork that says who's their power of attorney and who can step in as their healthcare agent, they may end up in the court system again while they're still living. We call it a living probate. The technical term is called conservatorship. You may have heard of that term. And if you have to gain conservatorship over one of your loved ones, that process can take a long time and cost a lot of money. And people can fight over who can be in charge. And you may end up with somebody being appointed by the court that isn't who you want to be the person in charge of you. So with a little bit of planning ahead of time, you can choose who's in charge of you. You can choose who manages for you. And again, this management over you only takes place when you are incapacitated. So people who have their mental capacity are in charge of their own lives. Your lives will not change at all if you set up a trust and do your will. But if you do become incapacitated or pass away, your loved one's life will be a lot smoother and easier to go through. So don't procrastinate.
Don't procrastinate, because we've both experienced that personally. With our clients, I'm so thankful that I didn't have to go through that with my parents. Everything was intact. I was their co-trustee. I had power of attorney for both, and I had such an easy time of it. Didn't have to worry about anything going awry. I just carried that document, like you said, in my back pocket anywhere I went, to a doctor, to a hospital. It was just made my life so much easier. And when I talk to people now and try to explain it to them, I try to really impress on them that this is what I went through. You don't want to go through something any different. You don't want to have to deal with people pushing back and saying, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you. You don't have power of attorney. I'm sorry, I can't give you that document. It didn't used to be that way, I don't know how many years ago, but having been through it personally, I try to impress so hard on people. Some people, believe it or not, don't even know what that is. And that is frightening, because you don't want to be in that position where you're in that emergency room and you don't have an advocate who's really knows what to do. I mean, I end up having to get permission for and releases to represent people, but I'm not the power of attorney. I can just facilitate the management of their care, but I cannot make decisions on their behalf. I can only guide them. You know, if they don't know what that power of attorney means, they can come to Michael and ask, right? So Michael, you really can help them understand the law behind what that document represents. But without it, they're really up a creek. And I hate to have that happen to anybody. And we're here for everybody. We can give you free consults. Michael and I work together as a great team. We have the services, we have the advisors, and Michael's been amazing. I don't know what I would do without you, Michael, personally, but I really impress on everybody. Please, please get everything squared away for yourself and your family, because we are in a crazy time. This is not where we can come to your home and hold your hand and figure out what's what. We can only do it through Zoom if you have Wi-Fi, if you even know how to operate Zoom, or on the phone. And we're willing to do the consults, and Michael's really amazing for being available to do these consults for free on the phone. So thank you, Michael. I mean, this is amazing advice. We really appreciate you. And any pearls of wisdom you want to leave us with before we leave?
Well, I would just say, you know, these are sometimes uncomfortable conversations for certain people.
Yes.
One of my strengths is trying to make it understandable and simple, because it isn't necessarily, I mean, it can be very complicated, but it also doesn't have to be.
Right.
And so one of my strengths is to make things understandable, and then people can make decisions. There's no right or wrong in any of this planning. Don't let anybody tell you that. What gives you the most peace of mind and helps you to sleep well at night is what is right. And what you want to do is find an attorney that will play devil's advocate and make sure you're seeing all sides of the situation before you decide what should be done. But in the end, as long as you're doing what you think is right and gives you peace of mind, I think you should do it. But don't procrastinate. I'd be happy to talk to anybody out there that would like a consultation, and I'd be happy to help and go from there. But
Thank
Gigi,
you,
thank
Michael.
for having me. It's always
Yes,
a pleasure.
thank you. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. We know you're a busy guy, so we really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, and I can't recommend Wellness on Wheels more highly either. For those of you that have, you know, crisis planning that needs to be done or help with in-home care, Gigi and her staff and friends and co-workers are great, and I would highly recommend you give them a call.
Thanks, Michael. Bye.